Hey everyone, so One Piece chapter 1039 just came out, and we just got one of the best pure action chapters in Onigashima so far, because we had 3 Devil Fruit users with extremely powerful abilities basically going all out. So Kid, Law, and Big Mom. I'm going to start with talking about Big Mom. Big Mom did 3 things that really impressed me this chapter. So first of all, healing, right? We haven't had to see her really use her lifespan eating ability to heal herself so far, because she hasn't really gotten injured much so far in any sort of substantial way. Yeah, Kid and Law have obviously been getting hits on her and everything like that, but who knew that she could just have like a full, surgery-based heal on deck just by eating her lifespan a little bit. So that's pretty significant considering that healing abilities in One Piece are relatively rare. I mean, you look at characters like Marco, Manchuri's Tears, and there's really not a lot of healing going around, right? It is one of the rarer abilities in One Piece. So the fact that a character as powerful and as strong and offensively, well-equipped like Big Mom also just has healing as a backup ability if she so chooses to eat her lifespan, that's pretty significant. So just more and more adding to Big Mom's arsenal. I really think that if you sit down and look at everything that she can do, she is possibly the most versatile ability user in all of One Piece. I think that there's a very strong argument for that. I mean, she can buff herself with her lifespan, she can heal herself with her lifespan, not to mention all of the, elemental-based attributes or abilities that she can acquire just by giving her a lifespan to different, she can do it to metal, she can do it to fire, lightning, etc., right? So we all know Big Mom, really powerful ability user, but I think it's just also just crazy to think about if you really sit down and think about all of the individual things that she has up her sleeve, besides just being an absolute, physical hockey monster. So just some props to Big Mom there. Besides that, I think we got a reminder of just how much of a bum Zeus was this entire time. Because we saw her, I don't know if she could have done these abilities before with Zeus, because we never saw her showcasing it, but the Maester Saber, right? The ability that she pulled out where she's combining Napoleon, Zeus, and Hera. An ability that was similar to what she used, I think, much earlier when she was fighting the Tobiropo page 1, ulti specifically, right? She combined her three primary homies to just launch a team attack. I think using it, all in one sword to create like a super sword that she can just swing around and easily cut Kid's metal bull in half, although that doesn't mean that much. It's Kid's metal. We know that those aren't the sturdiest. Kid's contraptions aren't the sturdiest, right? But still, the ability that she gets out of it, right? We haven't really seen her using 3 homie type combo attacks when Zeus was around, right? This seems to be a new addition to her ability set with Hera. I'm not going to say that she couldn't do it back when she had Zeus, but as soon as she got Hera, one of the first things we saw her using was combining Hera with Prometheus and with Napoleon, and here she's doing it again, combining Hera, Prometheus, Napoleon to just create a super sword for herself, right? Too bad we didn't really get to see much of it in action, just because she essentially got somewhat disarmed pretty quickly by Kid, who we'll get to in a second. But the just the upgrade that she got with Hera over Zeus, to me, I'm just like, why were you sticking with Zeus for so long? He's so clearly not the most competent or effective. She could have had this upgrade all along, but I guess now that she has Hera, we at least got to see her use it in combat a little bit. Besides that, Misery, that was really an interesting ability. Because you can do certain things. You could read into Big Mom's character a little bit if you want, I guess. Does the fact that it's named Misery mean anything, right? Or is it more so just the fact that she's spreading misery by using this attack? But I just thought, it's kind of like a cooler version of Kanjuro's yokai, right? The spirit demon that he created. But I don't know, I really like that. It seems like a manifestation of Big Mom's anger, fury in this moment, right? Obviously, for her, it's through soul. It's not like the way that Kanjuro did it through drawing it out, right? But, a tortured artist drawing out his, rage and frustration or whatever. But I just like that she has this sort of final form attack, even if it's not necessarily her final form, right? But it's creating a sort of, ultimate ability manifestation type. And I would have loved to, again, have seen that more in this battle, but, obviously it's too difficult to deal with, I guess, over time. So I don't know how Kid and Law would have dealt with it if Misery was running rampant for a bit of time, but it did seem really powerful. So Big Mom, I think we got a lot of, hypotheticals of, if she's using all of her abilities to their fullest, etc., then how strong is she exactly, right? Now, beyond Big Mom, who impressed me in many ways this chapter, like just pulling out all the stops with her abilities, Kid and Law. Who was more impressive? I think most of us are going to say Law. I think Law was more impressive personally. It's tricky though. I'll start with Kid. All right. I think Kid, to me, the most impressive thing he actually did this chapter, and it might be a little surprising, was the assign move that he did early on, right? Because I thought that was kind of, with a lot of this Big Mom fight, we've kind of been cutting back and forth. So, the way things play out, like it's not quite straight up, right? Like they're 2v1ing her. Maybe she's distracted with Kid one moment, Law's coming in with an attack from behind, stuff like that's very often happening. Or as we saw last chapter, she's getting pierced by Law, and then Kid comes in with the bull, right? The moment when Big Mom's charging straight at Kid with the Macer Saber, right? The super sword that she's created, and Kid's just charging at her with this, I don't know, with his, it's just his abilities. We don't feel very fragile, right? Like his metal creations, they get destroyed fairly easily, right? So in this moment, I was like, what is Kid? How does Kid survive this moment? Right? He's going at her straight up head on, right? How does Kid survive this moment? So I really like that he's able to so quickly pull out a very useful ability like Assign and use it in that way, and he's able to do it so fast that even like a charging Yonko, he can quickly get out that ability so quickly and literally just stop them in their tracks and essentially disarm them. I thought that was really, really impressive. In general, we haven't seen, again, like that was like a rare instance of just seeing Kid go straight at a Yonko head on and basically get the better of her, right, in that small interaction. I guess the one time he did it previously was initially when he charged into basically taking on Big Mom, right? Like Big Mom's downstairs, she's with Nami, ulti, etc. That whole scene has played out. Then Kid comes in, stops Big Mom's attack with his giant metal arm. You all have seen it before, I'm sure, and then slams her to the ground. Right, so that was a rare instance again of Kid just taking on a Yonko straight up and actually getting the better of her in a small interaction, right? So I like that moment. Obviously, I like the Assign moment quite a bit, just because, there's nothing you can say about that. There's no BS you can say about that moment, or no way to I guess excuse it, right? Like it was cool. Big Mom came at Kid straight up. She had a powerful attack charged up, and Kid still got the better of her in that moment. So I liked seeing him use Assign in that moment. And then I liked also that the finishing move that he had was not just a bigger, like Law's joking about it even, like what's next? Like a hippo, or what are you going to pull out next? It's not just a bigger metal monster, right? It's actually a more concentrated attack, the railgun, right? The electromagnetic cannon, right? I thought that's like a great use of his abilities. That is something that a lot of people were kind of hoping that he would get into, like, not just creating big things out of metal, but rather, how can the full ability of magnetism be used, right? So electromagnetic cannon, that's a great idea, right? And I'm glad that we actually got to see something that many have speculated about actually become, a part of his arsenal and one of his finishing moves. I think the electromagnetic cannon, the only thing I have on it, the only thought, maybe I'm being too, I don't know, maybe this is why I'm not giving Kid max credit in my mind. It's just the visual. I think the visual of the actual attack was not that, it might be one of those things, okay, how do I say this? Basically, to me, like, if I see the visual of Frankie's Radical Beam, or like Nami using an attack with Zeus, right? The electromagnetic cannon, I know logically it's very strong because I see what it's doing to Big Mom, right? And it damages Big Mom, that means it's a big deal. Right, but visually it didn't look that crazy or that impressive. It looked like a more straightforward attack. Like it's something I could easily see Frankie doing. Right, visually, I'm saying that's what it looks like. Now, next chapter, we might see like a big, I don't know what I'm looking for. Maybe a big explosion or a big shockwave or something. I don't know. Similar to kind of how, if you remember, Sanji beat Queen, and then at the end of that chapter, it's like, okay, how strong was that attack Sanji just landed on Queen? And then the start of the next chapter, we got to see Queen actually being knocked straight out of Onigashima and sent flying off that island itself. So I thought that was pretty cool. So maybe next chapter we get to see the after effects of Kid's railgun attack, and then maybe I'm more, mind blown, excited about it. You know what I mean? So still, Kid overall this chapter, I thought really, really impressive, right? The assign moment, a little bit more for me than the railgun moment, but the railgun that he's got a finisher move like that in the bag, that's really cool to see. And one last thing I'll say on Kid that, I kind of realized after this chapter, which Kid repeated his line again, which is just like, Big Mom broke his bowl, she cut his bowl in half. He's like, it's just scrap. He said that before, right? This is like, he said it a couple times now. I think Kid makes sense a little bit more symbolically why his ability is so much based around him gathering metal, trying to create something, having that broken apart, him reforming it, going at it again, right? It makes sense just because that's Kid's character. It's very similar to Luffy being rubber, right? Luffy always bounces back, right? It fits pretty clearly. Luffy always bounces back because he's rubber. He said as much pretty much during his fight with Moria. It's very on the nose. It's very clear. Kid, very similar, right? He doesn't care if his stuff gets blown up. He'll get right back up, right? It's just scrap. I'll reassemble. We've seen him go through the New World, or we haven't seen him go through the New World, but we know his journey through the New World. Goes up against Shanks, loses his arm, doesn't matter. He has to go up against Big Mom next, steals something from her. Goes up against Kaido, gets beaten down. You were just playing little pirate games, gets thrown in the cell, all of that stuff. Has Killer, his first mate, fed a smile fruit. All of this stuff keeps getting back up. You get what I'm saying? Like, his journey so far has been a very rocky one. A lot of it is him getting crushed, him having to reassemble, get back up. It's similar in a sense to Luffy, and it fits with his ability in a way that I hadn't thought about before, in a similar manner to how rubber fits Luffy. I'm giving Kid credit, like the concept of the character credit in that sense, because I know a lot of people disparage Kid as a character. I won't say that just because that's the character concept, and the character concept makes sense to me, and I like how it fits with kind of the things he says and the way he stubbornly keeps getting back up and how he views his abilities and utilizes his abilities. It all fits with his character. At the same time, a lot of it would feel a lot stronger if we actually got to flesh out that character a little bit, because right now we have the concept, but we don't really get to delve into Kid and his actual transformation or development or journey, right? I think that was one thing that I was really, really hoping for out of this chapter. If you remember my last chapter review, which is just that, we've seen Kid go through this sort of change of like, okay, I'm going to fight to back up Luffy or to help Luffy from here on, and I'm going to trust that he's going to be able to take down Kaido. I'm going to switch my focus to Big Mom, and I'm comfortable with that, right? We saw that vocalized last chapter in one panel where he says, I'm fighting for something different now. Somehow I'm fighting for something different now, right? So that panel, I was really hoping that, okay, let's get the character part of it, realized or fully understood this next chapter where you actually are in the, fight climax, right? Which is usually how really strong One Piece fights go. But I guess this chapter was more so just a showcase of his abilities, so we're not really going to flesh out his character just yet here. So last chapter's panel, that's pretty much all we're getting, I guess, for Kid character-wise for the moment. I'm guessing that Oda's saving it for later down the line because Kid clearly, he's had such an interesting journey and he's had an interesting change in character, right? So now we just need it fleshed out and a little understood. So I'm still waiting on that Kid stuff, but in terms of action, he really impressed me in terms of what he's capable of doing this chapter. So long spiel on Kid, over. Law, I've said this last chapter, Law's been impressive from start to finish. Anything he did this chapter was just gravy. And I think the thing that stood out to me the most about Law this chapter was the durability. So two things, right? Obviously the multiple uses of K-Room, right? And the puncture while and how he's amping that up, I guess, each time. The durability is a little more unexpected because to me it's just like, I did not realize that Law is a character that could take, this many close-up just hits from Big Mom, a Yonko, Big Mom, last we saw her, she was able to, she one-shots characters like Page 1, even in Udon, she had Queen kind of, not unconscious, but Queen was kind of down and out for a moment after a couple hits from Big Mom. So Law's just tanking a barrage of hits from Big Mom on top of all the damage he's already taken, and he's hanging through. I guess that's just the way that Oda writes protagonists, right? The willpower, right? Their protagonists are always going to be written with greater sort of willpower, I guess, than the general henchman fodder. Not fodder. Toby Roppo and Calamities aren't fodder, but you know what I mean? The way they're written, the henchmen, etc., they're not written to have that sort of willpower to keep going, keep tanking through these sort of really strong attacks. So I was not expecting that whatsoever. That Law would be able to just take this many hits from Big Mom close up. Now, in terms of his attack, let's just take a moment to appreciate the fact that Oda literally had Momonosuke. We know that that Onigashima is going to not come down on the floor, but like there's going to be a scene of Onigashima above the Flower Capital with Momonosuke holding it up, right? So we know that Onigashima needs to be above the Flower Capital soon, right? Pretty soon in the story. Oda literally had this whole like little extra mini step of Momonosuke that's taken place over the last little run of chapters of Momonosuke actually like pulling Onigashima away from the Flower Capital, like a little bit away from the Flower Capital, so temporarily holding off Onigashima hovering over the Flower Capital. Very possibly just to right this moment where Law has the puncture wile that goes all the way through Big Mom down into the Wano country land itself and creates a huge crater, right? Because if this was written while Onigashima was already like right above the Flower Capital or very close, then that attack of Law's would have created too much of a, it would have caught too much attention, right? First of all, if it's directly above the Flower Capital, Law's attack probably kills a lot of people. Probably does a lot of the Beast Pirates' work for them, right? Now, even if it's close to the Flower, even if it's on the outskirts of the Flower Capital, Law doing an attack like that would leave a huge crater, cause a commotion, make everybody realize that Onigashima is in the sky. And it does look like Oda's trying to save that moment of the villagers realizing that Onigashima is above them in the sky for extra dramatic effect, right? So it does seem to me that Oda did have Momonosuke. He's like, wait, for Law's attack, I need Onigashima to not quite be at the Flower Capital yet. Okay, Momonosuke will drag Onigashima a little bit away for a few chapters, and then Law can do his big attack, and then we can probably get Onigashima back over there. Maybe that's just speculation, but that is what it seems like to me. Maybe there's some other purpose of Momo having pulled Onigashima back, but that's just saying that's what it looks like to me, that this was kind of the setup for Law's attack. I wouldn't be surprised if soon Onigashima is moving back towards the Flower Capital, so we get that moment of Momonosuke holding it up. Now, long tangent aside, Law, I think I understand his K-Room attacks a little bit better now. I might be totally wrong. It does look like the larger he makes so the first time he's used it 3 times at this point against Big Mom, right? The first time to reveal the ability, right? And that was when when he first used it that time, his sword was a normal sized sword, right? And that affected her somewhat. Then last chapter, he made his sword significantly bigger, seemed to have a stronger effect on Big Mom. And then this chapter, he had already pierced her, but he intended to keep sounds weird, but keep making the sword bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Because it's going to have a more powerful effect, right? So it does look like, Law's K-Room ability, the amount of damage it does seems relative to, it seems basically based on how much Law, how much time Law spends enlarging the sword beforehand, right? So was that the limit of what he can do? I don't know, but it seemed to have a really, really strong destructive effect. So mad props to him. Who you want to give more credit to in terms of Law and Kid versus Big Mom? I don't even know why I'm addressing that here. I guess because it's fun. I'll just say this real quick. Who gets more credit for between Law and Kid versus Big Mom? I'll say this first, which is that I don't think Big Mom is done. I think this is a symbolic temporary win for now. I definitely don't think that Big Mom is done or out of the story for whatever. I definitely think she's getting back up at some point, because this is, one of the top 4 most important villains in the entire series, with way more build up, arcs upon arcs and arcs upon arcs of build up. A whole entire 80 chapter arc devoted just last arc to building her up specifically and really, really, really establishing her as a pivotal figure and one of the most important centerpiece villainous figures in the entire story. So for her to be defeated in just 1 chapter, well, maybe if you scrape together all of the previous pages and panels, you get to 1.5 to 2 chapters total. But for her to be beaten 1 to 1.5 to 2, 1.5 to 2 chapters, I highly doubt that that's the case. But I do think that this was a good symbolic win for Kid and Law, at least temporarily, and definitely, a good way to showcase what they can do up against the old generation. Now, who do I give more credit to in terms of the win? I think it's supposed to be, one of those 50-50 type things, right? At the same time, I'm glad to give Kid more credit, just because Law, every single attack that Law got in on Big Mom was factually thanks to an opening that was made by Kid. All of Law's attacks were essentially sneak attacks coming in from behind. Big Mom was always focused on Kid whenever Law came in to get an attack, right? So you can go back to the Awakening chapter. Last chapter, Big Mom was not focused on either of them, right? She was literally leaving and she had better things to do. The Kid got in a sneak attack there again. Law got in a sneak attack there again. This chapter, yet again, Big Mom is focused on Kid, using her misery ability. That's when Law comes in from behind, drops the building on her, gets in on her, uses his stuff. So to me, I'm just a little more impressed with Kid because Kid can actually do, again, this chapter we can see, or at the beginning of the fight we can see, Kid can actually do some stuff against Big Mom if he's just up against her straight up, right? Law, there's zero reason to believe that. Everything Law has done has been thanks to Big Mom being distracted, or unfocused, or looking at something else, or focused on Kid, or leaving the battle. So to me, that fits with Law's idea of a fighter. I think people tend to overrate Law because the reality is that Oda only ever shows him getting in attacks on strong characters through sneak attacks, right? Through sneak attacks, through the opponent being focused on something else. There's nothing really to suggest that Law would be that effective in a one-on-one fight against a Yonko. Whereas Kid, we at least got to see some things that suggest that, yes, he could he's got some tricks up his sleeve and some attacks up his sleeve that he can kind of go up against a Yonko. Not at their level yet in any sense. He doesn't have the hockey, he doesn't have any of that stuff, but I think we at least have examples of Kid doing certain things in sort of one-on-one direct interactions with the Yonko, whereas Law is very clearly a support fighter, even as much as that bothers people. Please find me some panels of him getting some hits in on Big Mom where she is not distracted and not focused on Kid or focused on leaving. So, after having made everyone mad with that, I did give Law more credit he was more impressive to me this chapter, I guess, because his attack was so cool, but I think overall, over the course of the fight, you got to give more credit to Kid for actually being the one that's giving Law opportunities to even get hits in, and Kid manages to get his own hits in as well on top of that. So, all that being said, probably made a lot of Law fans really angry with that, but that's just the reality of the character, so deal with it. And if you enjoyed this video, then definitely like, comment, and subscribe.